according to my computer, this is slow, so we're going to declare it to be 7 o'clock and call the meeting to order. Present are members Berg, Ewell, Wyndham, Brandon, Berger, License, and Ferraro. And Ms. Keenan and Ms. Fralick are en route, and Ms. Carlisle will be with us. And so, first I'd like a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Thoughts? Without objection, it is adopted. We will move directly on to, seeing no police or fire, we'll move on to council member Vaughn.
Just getting settled in. Happy New Year to everyone. As you probably heard from the news, we were all inaugurated a week ago today, so y'all are stuck with me another 4 years. It's been kind of a quiet start to the year. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that since the legislature started today, there's probably going to be a lot more activity and action going on there across the street, the Gold Dome. There are a couple of pieces of legislation that we're following and advocating for, largely associated with trying to help provide additional revenue opportunities for the city to help alleviate some of the budget things that we're looking at or talking about. Just some personal news. I got my committee assignments this year. For this year, I'll be returning to city utilities, which addresses the water situation. I'm newly, for the first time, on transportation. The interesting thing to understand that's going to be coming up in the next 12 to 18 months on that committee is going to be the renewal of all of Delta's leases at the airport. So we'll be working on that and making sure that the city gets it renewed, but at a favorable situation or condition to, what was that term? Arrangement or
yeah, there you go, thanks. For both the city and for Delta. And then finally, I'm returning to finance executive and surprisingly, and very honored to be chair of that committee. So I'm going to be responsible for the budget hearings and watching that go through. In my initial conversations with the CFO, it looks like looking ahead to FY15, which starts on July 1st. We're finally in a position where the tax digest has stabilized and is actually rebounding. All the other revenues are coming back, so should be in a position where we're not cutting significantly and actually starting to stabilize our revenue kind of sources and making sure that they're sustainable going forward. One of the things that I talked about as I was running in November was a lot of interest in an infrastructure bond. So we're hearing now that the timing on that won't be until 2015. The magnitude is still somewhere in the $200 to $250 million range, and that's to help pay for bridges, roads, sidewalks, and the like. The really interesting thing that we've learned, though, and that's the conversation we're going to start having over the next 6 months, is the idea is not to raise taxes to do it, not to impose a new tax, but rather to really look at operating efficiencies so that we can find the capacity within the budget itself, which I think is actually a really great thing, that we're finally really going to be squeezing as hard as we can all the excess, all the surplus, and everything focused on the infrastructure bond, because it's sorely needed. And then finally, the East Side Trail Gateway. I don't know if you've seen the announcements or not. They're going to do a groundbreaking Friday morning at 10 o'clock. Everybody's welcome to go, and it's kind of right there near the old Fourth Ward Park. So any questions or anything from me that you'd like me to take back? Again, it's start of a new term with 2 new council members, and things are quiet. Yes?
So infrastructure bond is great for new sidewalks and sidewalks where they haven't been before, but in terms of maintenance, it's really not adequate. What do we need to do to get an regular annual piece of the operating budget so we can be efficient about maintenance?
Well, I mean, that's something that we'll just have to talk about in the budget hearings, quite frankly. I know that there are a lot of other council members that have been, the voice for that has been growing and trying to find a sustainable source for that. I haven't seen anything definitive or nothing's been put on the table specifically. And I actually was thinking about that. I was driving over here today about city utilities and how we were trying to get the sidewalk folks in front of the committee last year. And just so you know, I did talk to Howard, I talked to Natalie and to Carla, because Natalie and Carla, I believe, spearheaded that. So I barked up every tree I could to try and get that, so we'll just have to continue that. I think some sort of proposal or option, if it were to come out of the sidewalk task force and through the city utilities committee, would probably be the best way to approach that.
Okay.
Anything else?
When will we have to have that in mind?
Our budget hearings won't start until April, so we've got a little bit of time. But the sooner we get that, start working on that and getting a proposal on the table for council to start vetting, the better.
So we, of course, very much appreciate your support for the master plan, both financially and in concept. We have a flyer for you, which we would love if you or Sheila could come, and we have a high opinion of Sheila, so if you can't make it, if you can, we would love her to try to get a busy moment and work online. She's both the element involved with this neighborhood for a long time. So thanks, we know that would be great, and so we hope to see you there.
Anything else? I'm gonna duck out of here. I'll have, if you need anything, two things real quickly. My email address you have, if you'll just make sure you just put that on the minutes one more time. And then if you don't already subscribe to the monthly e-newsletters that we put out, you can sign up at our City District 6 website, which is atlantadistrict6.com.
Just so you know, I post that every month,
Okay.
whenever I get it, and I think we include it in our newsletter as well, so
Great.
trying to get it out.
Are you the kind of the communications person? One of the things that we're doing in our newsletter this year is we're going to highlight a different neighborhood every
I
month.
saw that you did.
We kind of wanted, we're saving Virginia-Highland for when Summerfest comes around, unless y'all have a different feeling. But good, we'll be talking.
Sounds good.
All right, thank y'all. Have a good night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We've got Alex Beasley here from Trees Atlanta for an update on what they're up to.
So, good evening, everybody. I'm Alex number 2. Alex Beasley, I work at Trees Atlanta. Before I forget, I'll just go ahead and give anybody my email address. As I'm talking about the planting, if you guys want to email me, feel free to do so. The reason I'm here is I want as much communal support and input as possible. So my email address is alex@treesatlanta.org. And I probably do not need to make the introduction, but I'll do it anyway. If you're not familiar with Trees Atlanta, we are a nonprofit, and we try and get as many trees and plants in the ground as possible. We like to do as many meaningful plantings as possible when there's shade needed in an area, or a right-of-way strip, or a front yard. That's our little niche, and we like to give trees away, essentially. We take care of the trees for 2 years. That includes pruning, that includes mulching, and includes watering. So, yeah, really I'm here to just kind of introduce the project. It's going to come to Virginia-Highlands and Morningside, and just encourage you guys to send me any feedback or send me emails or whatever. So, February 22nd, Trees Atlanta is going to be hosting a tree planting in Virginia-Highlands and Morningside, as said. As of now, there's roughly 90 trees that we've slated to go in the Virginia-Highlands neighborhood. I've been working closely with the lovely Stephanie Coffin, and we've been working with Pierce Pape, who's also a Virginia-Highlands resident. And basically on the 22nd, we're going to have a Boy Scout troop that is from Virginia-Highlands, and a Boy Scout troop that is from Morningside, which is going to be about 100 kids. They're going to come with their families, and they're going to be planting the trees. We certainly encourage anybody who can come to come volunteer. It's extremely fun, and it definitely helps out the community. And as for the places that we're going to be concentrating on planting, it's mostly the Atkins Park area. So the 3 Atkins Park streets, St. Louis, St. Augustine, and St. Charles, and also Greenwood Avenue, which is actually where I live, up to about the Fred Frederica intersection, and then we're gonna find some on the Virginia-Highland side of St. Charles as well. So I won't rattle all these addresses off, but I have brought 5 copies, and you guys can, again, feel free to email me, and I can, tell you if you're an involved party in here. And again, any input is welcome. If you don't want a tree, it's certainly not my place to force a tree upon you, but, trees are awesome, and, we'd like to work with you, so, I'm gonna leave these.
Can I just ask a question?
Absolutely.
You're saying that you basically got a map of where all the trees are gonna go, or?
Once it gets a little more finalized, I am gonna make a map. I have to send all of these plantings into the city arborist by the 22nd of this month, so I will have, a map, but I do have every single address that we have identified thus far. The
Is there any
species.
value to share that information proactively with the neighborhood at
Certainly
large,
do
or with
that.
those individuals?
If you are comfortable, if y'all are comfortable with it, let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah, I think once.
Am I wrong, Alexander? I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, no
If there's
problem.
other people that avidly want a tree, even if they're not in the targeted area, in the past, you've often been able to
Facilitate that, absolutely.
facilitate that. So
Or do we wanna,
mention that if folks, even though they're not in the targeted area, this is a great chance. to
wanna work
Plan it.
together to do something? Wanna write something up, or?
The sites that we picked out, and we're doing Briarcliff Place, all along Briarcliff Place is a major area because it's really rough and it really needs trees.
Yep.
But always the tree planting, the neighborhood sites are leafleted twice.
So the people that live there
So
will
people
know.
who live there know that they're gonna get a tree and have the right.
I still like the article though, just because I think it encourages, it publicizes the effort.
I think it's
and
great.
goal.
Yeah, tells people who don't get trees in front of their house what we're doing.
Let's plant some ideas here for future plantings.
Absolutely, absolutely.
There is another possibility is that Trees Atlanta will put in overstory trees in front yards within 5 feet of the sidewalk, and they get paid recompense money from that. So if anybody really wants an overstory tree, a tulip poplar or oaks primarily, I mean, that's great. We'll go out of our way to do that.
Yeah, even if it's not in that targeted area, I will work it out. I'll get a volunteer even on another day to come over there because, we want to encourage anybody who wants a tree to get a tree.
And this is at no cost to the resident?
It's no cost.
No cost to the
Like it
resident.
says, you take care of the trees for 2 years.
And even after
How
that
much
2-year,
lead time do we need to give people
Well,
to let
he's
us?
got to get his list in by the 22nd.
by the 22nd of January.
January.
That's correct.
All right.
So we got 9 days.
So why don't you give us an go ahead and submit the proposed address.
Okay, yeah, and I'll leave them here for anybody that wants to see it, and email me if there's any problems, or if you're excited, or you want to talk about the species, whatever you guys, would like to talk about. So I'll leave a whole handful of these, but, who should I send, once it gets a little more,
You send it to John, and we'll send you his email.
Okay,
So John
great.
will, and we got yours, and we'll
Great.
do that. He does the newsletter, and he's great at it. So
Sure.
we'll get-
And we can even go as far as to post an electronic copy of
Yes,
this.
we can do all of that. I like the notion because it shows how organized. And if anybody doesn't like it and has slept through it, they also have this notice in addition to y'all's. And we're gonna hear about the master plan from Jennifer and Jess a little later more, but I did want to note inserted here that 2 pieces of the master plan. One is that y'all had contemplated doing replacing the street trees at the south end of North Highland. That was a big idea this year, and it's not going to happen this year because right now the master plan is looking at some active possibilities for some changes that are not the set in stone and by any means, but that may change a little bit of the look of the street along there. And if that happens, it would alter the way that y'all approach the street.
Absolutely.
So that hadn't been forgotten, but it's just gonna be on hold for a year or 2, but it's very much in the picture. And we thank you for that. The other is, Jess and Jen, correct me if I misspeak on this, but among the things we've learned already and part of the exchanges with the city is that the city is looking at using St. Charles in addition to Ponce for bike traffic. Obviously, Ponce is already in a well-developed plan and it's going to be used. But in addition to that, St. Charles, because it's wide and because it does not have ridiculous amounts of traffic, is possibility, and also because it connects to the bell line, which makes it even more desirable. And I was talking to Stephanie about this, say, one of the things that makes that so viable and attractive, we need to note this publicly and in our narrative about that, I think about this, is that, I mean, according to Stephanie's records, have planted 60-something trees, and it's actually more if you count the middle section along the area from Highland to Potts Place. And it really is one of the reasons that Jonathan Lewis and the planners, Jessica Lalani, looked at that, thought was brilliant, was because it has such great tree cover, and it's only going to continue to get better. So this is a benefit that nobody perfectly anticipated, but is there, and it is a terrific street to walk down, especially because we fixed a lot of sidewalks over there, which makes it even better to walk down, and it's great to bike down. And so this is, you know, these are unintended benefits from trying to follow good principles, and they're catching up with us later. We certainly catch up, get a lot of bad things that when we follow bad principles, so we're delighted to note the good ones as well. And we thank y'all, both of y'all, for your work on that over the years, which we'll enjoy for many decades, I think. Yes, ma'am?
So DPW tells me that they've been working with Trees Atlanta to put together a plan for planting trees, for that would be like an advisory for residents about what trees and plantings are appropriate as right of way, but I've been unable to actually get a copy of this document they tell me is finished. Has Trees Atlanta actually seen such a thing?
I've actually not heard of that. I can certainly check in.
Check into it for me, because they quite emphatically told me it was finished.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll send you Peggy's email, and she's been very active on the street sidewalk repair piece of this.
Okay.
If you do, Greg may know something about it, and if not, let's get on.
But
Sure.
we really need we need some information like that. We need it to be up on websites, we need it to be disseminated through the NPUs and the civic associations, but first it needs to actually be created and to be comprehensive and to have Trees Atlanta, to benefit from Trees Atlanta's insights
Sure.
about what to plant
Okay.
and what parameters to use.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Stephanie, thanks, Alex, for this, and for Trees Atlanta as ever. And
Sure.
thanks for giving back. We give a lot of money to groups that we don't actually often hear from. And it's easy to give it to y'all because we have to see it nonstop. So we appreciate that very much. Thanks for coming tonight.
Stephanie, do you want to add anything? Good?
No, I was gonna say that there are, the city always has certain recommendations of trees. But it's really kind of complicated as to what kind of trees people would plant in the right of way, because you got sunshade, and also a lot of trees are not appropriate, period. And so really, when you talk about street trees, you're only talking about a few species that are even acceptable. It's really hard to find a good street tree.
It's too bad Craig Myrtle's.
That's exactly why I think it's really important to put something out there that maybe has some parameters in it. If you've got slope, if you've got shade, if you've got sun,
Right.
if you've got 2 feet versus 7 feet worth of right of way. There's not that many options and there's not that many constraints, so it ought to be possible to put
That's
out a
right.
good document.
There's some
Right.
documents out. I think we can get
Right.
this on. I think you're gonna find Greg knows something about the history of this.
Yeah.
Because Greg knows everything about trees in the last 20 years in this city. Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Very
Thank you
much.
for having me.
We will certainly hope the police arrive, and if they don't, we will interrupt after whatever presentation we're in. So we'll move on to planning, and we're going to start with B13264. You're up.
Do you want to just give
Give a very brief presentation of what you've done, and the report of the planning committee's on there, but please tell everybody briefly.
So we live on Glen Arden Way, and we are converting our attic from unheated space to heated space. There'll be no structural changes, so the outside of the house will remain the same. We're not removing any trees, but we are adding plumbing and HVAC drywall installation.
The planning committee visit was saw no tree or runoff issues. The neighbors have been notified, and the planning committee recommends approval of condition on site plan dated 11/25/13. Any questions from the audience? Any questions from board members?
When did the planning committee do their approval?
Was last Monday.
Last Wednesday at the 8th, on the 8th.
On January 8th? And it Mark, David, Karen, Lola, Chip,
Yes,
Jennifer, Jess?
yes, it was a large meeting. So can we have a motion for approval from this board? And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand under the conditions we mentioned. The site plan dated 11/29/15. All right, you're in. Thank you very much. Next week at the NPU at Hillside. It will not be at 7:15, but you should be there by not much later than 7:30 and bring something to read if you don't enjoy watching democracy in action. All right, thank you very much. Our next case is B 13-265, 976 Adair. Ms. Hinkle.
We are asking for a variance to build a 5-foot addition onto our master bathroom. The master bathroom will go into the side yard 2 or 3 feet. And then also a variance for the back setback for our shed. And the shed will also be in the side setback on the other side of the yard.
And the rear setback as well.
The rear setback and the side setback.
It's explained on the application here. So this, the side yard setback on your house on the west side lines up with the existing setback. So I noticed that the site visit from the planning committee found one tree that needed to be added, which you've subsequently done, and asked for a 55-gallon rain barrel minimum that size on the west side to make sure that no water flows to the west onto your neighbor there. It's not a tremendous grade, but it has the potential. And you've done that on the revised site plan. So the planning committee recommended approval based on the filing of the revised site plan, which has been done and is dated
Tonight.
1/9/14. So I believe that was the motion. The appropriate neighbors have been notified. They're very aware. So can we have a motion to that effect from this board?
Planning committee recommended.
Planning approval of the board condition on site plan dated 1/9/14.
Can I ask you a question on this? I know you just passed it.
Just 1 second, we haven't passed it yet. Can we have that motion?
You want it before Fraser?
No, I want it, yeah, we want it before Fraser.
So moved.
And seconded, great, thanks, sir.
The removal of the deck, counted as reducing the yard coverage. Am I misremembering? I thought decks do not count as yard coverage.
You are misremembering, Nathan.
They do. Porch does.
No, a porch does.
It does now?
Yes, it always did. Always did. Any impervious surface, including gravel, still counts in the city of Atlanta as they just treat it as purely impervious, yeah. You know, they're actually have improved their impervious lot coverage. They may have other motives, but in any case, they have improved their impervious lot coverage and brought it. They didn't have to, they could have left it at the 57%. They would have had to remove it to at least compensate for the 57 they went into it down. They are contemplating other things, but those will be dealt with if their contemplation turns to action. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for Patty. Do you have an updated site plan?
Are we giving it?
We do have it here, stamped and dated on that.
Can you make a copy for me?
Well, actually, she has an extra copy too.
Well, this is the original.
Okay, we'll give you our copy.
I didn't have a contact for you.
Is there any further discussion from the board or anyone?
I'm the one that sent you all the email.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. All right, ma'am, we will see you next week, same admonition. You have our phone number. If the gate turns out to be closed, you should buzz us if sometimes it's not open. Hello, sir.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Seldom has anyone received the floor more quickly. You are now recognized.
Wow. Well, thanks for hearing
Please
much for
introduce
that.
yourself and I'll apologize.
Thank you very much for that. I guess I'll start by saying Happy New Year. For those that don't know me, I think pretty much the board was in the last time I was here, but I am Lieutenant Floyd. I'm the evening watch commander here in Zone 6, and I'm standing in for Major Peak, who commands the zone. We bogged down with several meetings at the same time, so we kind of got to split them up. And I think he plans to be here next month.
Great.
However, I guess I'll just start with crime. Crime so far this year is good. I mean, like I was explaining to you guys before, I think the biggest problem with the Virginia-Highlands community is the largely from autos, which are crimes of opportunity. As far as crime zone-wide, we did end up 2% from crime in 2012. However, we had a lot of changes within the zone. We added on some areas that used to be in Zone 5 and whatnot. So that kind of pushed our crime up a bit.
The belt line did that. The belt line's a big part of it.
Yeah, the belt line. I mean, we added on some area that we get counted for crimes. And as far as the crime count, I know it really doesn't mean much to you guys. All that you want to hear about is you just don't want to be victimized. So moving into 2014, we just asked for the community just to continue to just be aware of your surroundings, continue to call us on suspicious activity. Make sure that your lights are lit so that, if your neighbors are watching, so that your neighbors can see what's going on, if there's any suspicious activity around the house. Get residential alarms. I know you've been discouraged from those alarms because of the false alarm notices and fines that the city is levying because of the false alarms.
We're not discouraged at all.
But we encourage everybody to get alarms because that's the only way to notify the police that something's going on at your house, that a burglar is at your house. We're continuing to push the clean car campaign. Just make sure that you clean out that compartment of your vehicles or securing those items in your trunk.
So before, we have very specific questions for Lieutenant Ford. Anybody in the audience, any thoughts? So we have one I'd like to ask you outside, but it's a very specific question about one situation. But any general questions for Lieutenant Ford at all?
And to add, we have been my beat 601 officer, my permanent officer for 601 is beat. I let him, spoke with him about the homeless concerns that you all had in the last meeting. I also shared those concerns with the morning watch commander and also the day watch commander. So we are still targeting, the homeless and trying to just find them different resources so that they're not hanging around in the park and, along the North Highland corridor.
Who is the morning watch, day watch?
The day watch commander is Lieutenant Roberson and Marshal Roberson, and the morning watch commander is Lieutenant James Hall, and I am Desmond Floyd. So we're still on our radar, the homeless. We're still on our radar. We're still trying to address the issue. And find the proper resources, not just taking the agenda, but finding, something else to do. So that's that. Any questions?
Thank you very much for coming out on a rainy night. I have one thing I want to ask you.
Thank you for having me. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Keep coming.
Okay, so we'll get back to the variances. Melissa, red lines? Okay, sorry. Yeah, so this is B13-284 for 1038 St. Charles Avenue.
Yeah, we are requesting a variance
for reducing setbacks from our front yard and our side yard in order to finish a basement, make it heated. There will be no exterior structural changes. We've notified the neighbors and gone through the planning committee process. Are there any questions or anything I missed?
Does anyone have any questions? Okay, so we'll move to approve B13-284, conditioned on the site plan dated December 18th, 2013.
Second.
All those approved? Okay. Great, so the next thing on the agenda is the master plan update for, from Jennifer. I'll take a stab at it. So we've got a meeting coming up that's, I have flyers here that we're just gonna put up around the neighborhood, but it's on January 22nd at Inman Middle at 7 o'clock. And it'll go for about 2 hours. The format will be about 45 minutes of explaining where the master plan is, what new developments have come up since the preliminary concept were posted on the website. And then after that update and short discussion, we'll break out into smaller groups. And there will be hands-on sort of precise questions that have answers that people can choose from, like to help us develop things like a vision statement for the master plan, for the neighborhood, and some other things that are just not necessarily traffic and transportation related, but maybe related to our businesses, to our parks, to the environment as a whole, trees, things like that, are going to be addressed more in this meeting than they were at the last meeting. And so it'll be more hands-on and a lot of discussion afterwards. And then the ways that we're trying to get the word out are flyers around the neighborhood, the Street Captain Network, the Nextdoor website, Virginia-Highland website, various emails. Just trying to get the word out and make sure everyone knows about the meeting, knows about the master plan, and has a chance to comment and get involved and see, especially because we're still hearing from people about, oh, Barnett, there's speeding on Barnett, how do we fix that? And then there's discussion about it, and that is the perfect kind of conversation to route into the master plan. Because people who specifically live on a certain street, they know the traffic patterns, or they'll know, everyone has different ideas, and you never know where they'll go. So it's just good to have a lot of attendance. After that, the drafts are going to be on the website, so it's still a longer process. The meeting is just one part of it. And so revisiting that website and getting updates is going to be just a good thing to do over the next few months. A few of the ideas that the preliminary concepts for traffic and transportation, some of them are kind of large ideas. And so that has different, discussion that comes up from that. So one idea is, you can look at them. There's like 14 different preliminary concepts on the website, which is vihimasterplan.org. And so that's sort of a starting point. If you're just now sort of tuning into the master plan, that's a good spot to look at what's already been discussed. Am I forgetting anything?
No, I think this meeting on the 22nd will really be the last public meeting that we have for the public to provide input into the master plan process. The next step after that will be a presentation of the proposed plan. So this is really the last step to try to get input and discern what the vision is of the community.
So we really need to make that point in our communication prior to this meeting. This is your last chance to ask.
We will do it.
Yeah, it's the last chance to sort of have a discussion one-on-one and have just sort of a group thing. I think once the master plan is drafted, it'll be available for comment. It won't be concrete yet, but that is definitely the best way to have a collaborative input.
What time is that again? I'm sorry.
It's 7 p.m. at Inman Middle on January 22nd. So it's next Wednesday, 7 o'clock.
What happens after you come up with your plan?
Does it go to the city council? Do they, I mean, is that what happens? They have to approve it?
I believe, yeah, I don't know exactly the process, but it would go to city council, and that's sort of why Alex was brought on board, to support it conceptually at least. And because the city council would vote on it, and it would become just legitimate document to represent sort of what Virginia-Highland would want in things like the bond that Alex mentioned. And so a good way to get funding from that bond is to have that master plan and have a project in there. So even if there's not a project already in there, there's still time to get, new ideas into it at this point.
And the meeting is in the cafeteria?
Yes, cafeteria.
And I mean, it is not utterly impossible if there's hundreds of people storming with great, and there's a need for more meetings, that we could do another meeting, but this is the tentative schedule that's been laid out, and it would be fine with us if there were hundreds of people storming the place and wanting to talk about this even more. So it's not that this isn't some attempt to run the train down the track and wave goodbye. I mean, if we really want a lot of input, and this is a great chance to do it.
Yeah, we've been going through this process now for 4 months, and we've had all different tools available to receive public input. There was an internet survey, an interactive map, we had an initial public meeting, then the proposed concepts were put on the website, and there was additional opportunity for public comment. But I mean, this meeting is really, I think, the best opportunity to have an effective input. You'll have a chance to, the community will have a chance to talk to the planners, talk to the people who have been analyzing all the data, analyzing all the input that we've received. So it's an opportunity to provide input and really to have your questions answered by the people who have been working most closely on this for the last 4 months. So we're going to do a big push, and please tell your friends and neighbors about this great master plan process that we've been doing and this big meeting that we're having on the 22nd.
Questions or thoughts? Okay, thank you very much for that. Let's move on to some internal items. First of all, in Ray, the board here. Suzanne Buck has been our treasurer this year. They did well all fall, announced this last week. She's had some changes in her job and personal life that required that she step down. We will miss her and appreciate what she did, but she's asked for some immediate relief as these changes are upon her. Peggy has volunteered to step in the short term here and serve as an interim treasurer for the board. I'd like to make a motion that we approve her as interim treasurer and pending our, and we can talk after that about what else we may want to do as a group. But I will make that motion. Is there a second? And any discussion or thoughts about it? Peggy, thank you for doing that. All in favor, please say aye. Thanks.
Thank you.
She's also secretary.
Well, maybe we'll make some adjustments to that.
I'm willing to step in again while she's doing the treasurer, so I think that's too much. You can't be secretary and treasurer. That's too much now. So I'm happy to do it again, unless somebody else wants to do it, but.
Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded that Ms. Ferraro will become the interim secretary while this situation obtains. Thank you very much, Jenny, for doing that, and that will keep us going here. And in a little while, Melissa Price, who is our hired accountant, will be arriving here. We're going to adjourn the meeting. Everybody's welcome to stay and look at the almost but not quite final 2013 budget report and the proposed 2014 budget, which closely reflects the 2013 budget, interestingly enough. But meanwhile, I want to go over a couple more things here. First of all, I intended to share goals on this. We're going to have to post them to do it, and I'm sorry, take responsibility for it. It just didn't get done in time to, cleaned up in time to come to this meeting. But we'll get them up in the next few days and have a discussion and try to adopt them next month, so there'll be ample time to see them online. And most folks have presented them, and for a couple of us that haven't, we'll work on them. I do want to give a report on parks, as we have, not entirely where we hope to be, and again, part of the reason for that. And Lauren, I want you to just chip in here where you can. We have a contract ready to go with a group that's going to do the renovation at John Howell. We just had not signed it. The holidays got in the way, and we'll be meeting with them very shortly with our landscape architect. Brandon Berger's now on the Parks Committee. He's going to step up, and Lauren will be there, and it's also Lauren's, the legislature's in session. We definitely need Lauren to pay as much attention to that as possible. To minimize whatever you can minimize and maximize whatever you can maximize down there. But that is the reality. We're ready to go. The budget, we did not expend the $25,000 in last year's budget that was anticipated. We had allocated half toward the master plan, and understanding we would allocate the other half in this year's budget. So this year's budget shows a $50,000 allocation and the $25,000 unexpended and brought forward for that purpose. So it's not a large amount of money.
Not the master plan.
Excuse me for the park, I apologize. Yeah.
Okay, do you want to know about
We allocated in the 2013 budget $25,000 for matching funds for the John Howell Park to help meet our half of the park ride budget. We did not expend them, so we will forward that item into the 2014, and the budget shows the anticipated remaining $25,000 that we're going to anticipate allocate for that. So it shows a $50,000 allocation, but zero, 25 expended in 13 and brought forward as unexpended funds into the budget. And the other development, and Colleen, please jump in here on this, you and Jess, I know we're at the meeting, is that we're trying to work on New Highland Park. We have a request from a resident there that the lighting, which is thanks to the magic fingers of John Becker, now cuts itself off at midnight. Cuts itself off at 10 or 10:30, so not quite on the dot. We need to actually have some light in that park all night long, but we're trying to figure out a way to do it in a way that shines on the adjacent neighborhood. It's not as easy as you would think. It's not a trip to the store, I'll tell you. We're going to work on that and trying to work on some improved to make sure we don't have any homeless issues in that park as well. We are in control of that park. This is not a city of Atlanta park. It's a Virginia-Highland City Association piece of property. Any board member, yea, any citizen, in my opinion, certainly any board member, can summon the police and ask to have any individual removed for any violation of the law, including camping there at any given point. Signage will arrive, but we do not need signage to make that request any more than any of us need signage to remove an individual that camps in our front yard on our property. We are authorized representatives, and I was just discussing this with the lieutenant. It's quite clear about it. If anybody is breaking the law there, call the police, ask that they let the officer witness it, ask that a warrant be issued, and they will deal with it. And there's I will additionally want to have a report now, if we can. Peggy, Lola, John, and I went up and met with the Open Door community. It's been serving the homeless community in this neighborhood for 3 decades or more. And John, would you like to do a quick report on it?
It was a great trip. I think it certainly opened my eyes. I knew the facility was there, and I know there's been a history between the facility and the neighborhood, good and bad. But it was nice to see the building, the conditions, the challenge that they face, people that are benefiting from the hard work that they do, and they face a considerable challenge. So I think everyone that went on the trip came away feeling that it was a worthy cause to support. And so we did a little communication toward the end of the year, encouraging people to donate and volunteer time if they could. think Mary Catherine said that there'd been some positive feedback.
Yeah.
So I think she seems to be pleased. And I think it was part of an overall effort for them to reach out and sort of establish a better working relationship, not only with the VHCA, but with members of the community at large.
And in that respect, they certainly know a great number of the homeless citizens in this neighborhood. They certainly do. The citizen who lives, has been spending a lot of time in front of the hardware store violating no laws that the police have observed and has ever been in any way threatening. And they also knew the gentleman popularly known as Robin Hood, who has been abusive, throwing rocks at cars, been threatening, and he's not actually allowed an open door, hasn't been for a long time. So they have a very nuanced view of the citizens and of that challenge. They also called a liquor challenge to our attention that the planning committee is trying to figure out how to address with some retail liquor sales down on Barnett Street that appear to be legal, but are the applicant on Barnett Street, when he got his liquor license, promised us, and it's in our minutes and NPU minutes, that he would not sell individual cans of beer, and he is selling extreme, has an entire display full of them, and a lot of, it's not a, it's a bit of a challenge, and the open door folks are quite aware of it, and we're going to try to speak to him. I do not know what success is. It is not illegal per se, they promise us. We will try to take it up. We appreciated their support. Mary Catherine and one of her colleagues will be coming to this meeting next month to give a brief presentation about what they do. And subsequently, we hope to have some of the other major nonprofits in this neighborhood, including the Presbyterian Church, the Lutheran Church, and the YWCA speak to this meeting in the remainder of the first half of this year, so that we understand what all of these institutions are up to and how they interact with us and how we can interact efficiently. Any questions or comments from anyone, sir?
Who are we contracting with to do the park?
Hutchinson, horticulture.
And once they're contracted with, they're gonna be the contractor to do all of the stuff that's being, as we have the money.
Yeah, no, we have the money, I mean, with the grant, we have the money. Yeah, they will do, there'll be not a lot, because it will be an active construction site. It will not, the volleyball courts will effectively not be functional, and the area will be substantially blocked off. I have no doubt that it will be possible to somehow get in there, but there's not a ton of, we did a volunteer piece of this project. David led an effort with Team Buzz in December that repaired substantially the gully there between the upper and lower levels.
Oh, yeah, blocked it off.
Yeah, it's really been substantially repaired and it's functioning pretty well. It needs a little more build-up, but it's gone, and once we get it built up a little more, we can plant it. So that's that. I think we're generally very pleased with John Howell Park. I mean, the grass is back. Walter's continued, his work has continued. He's continued to remove non-natives. He thinned out the area between the two locals, bringing in some more liriape to put in certain areas. And we're trying very hard to get the folks not to mow it.
Was that on the upper part where you're working on that gully? Did we finally get that water coming through problem fixed, or is it still going to be?
It's reduced. If you notice, there's a leaf, a bunch of bags of leaves up there that have been repeatedly deposited on that area, which is the poor man's way of doing it, just the leaf, having the leaves on there. And leaving them there will break down the soil and increase the absorption tremendously, as well as be an absolutely free gift to the trees there. The battle there again has been, and I'm not trying to blame this on Parks, but Parks is under pressure in many neighborhoods to blow leaves away like they're a maniacal enemy, and they have courteously agreed with us that they're not doing that. We do have to kind of renew the message periodically, but leaves are, God's great gift to the soil. If you just leave them there, they'll take care of this. And if the soil were, we could plant it if it weren't hard-baked clay as it was when David led the project up there. They put in water bars across a section there to reduce the flow. we're trying a whole series of things, and we started putting plans in, and that will continue this year. And with any luck, we'll get around the bend on that question. That soil will look like a park and feel like a park. I would love it. But you're right to call attention to that. That is the proximal cause of all of that. Until it's corrected, it will never be chasing our tail.
Just a comment, I haven't been in the park at night for a while, but Bob Coombs told me the other day we're back to the point where we've got very few lights that are staying on at night. I remember we had that a couple of years ago, and when they came in, they fixed a bunch of them. That's just something we just gotta jump on from every couple.
No, it really is a challenging problem. What is needed is a complete redo of the entire system.
The lighting system?
Yeah, there are many non-functional lights. Until we get this renovation behind us, I don't think we're biting off any more big chunks budget-wise at John Howell Park. We need to get this renovation in and done. And then maybe in next year's budget, we can try to look around for that. And theoretically, it's up to Parks.
So I was gonna say, that falls on us to do?
No, theoretically, it's up to Parks.
Well said.
So next year, I think we want to try to talk about what it would take to really redo that. We can try to get some estimates. We haven't even bothered. We know it'll be in the $10,000 to $15,000 range.
You're not talking about completely taking down all those poles and completely, or are you?
No, but we're talking about going around to every single one of the ones that don't work and finding out why they don't work and replacing everything that needs to be replaced and changing all the bulbs out that need, so that they're one set of bulbs, there are 3 kinds of bulbs in there now, and replacing all the globes that need to be done, and it's a big job. And really, instead, what we've been doing is letting Parks fix it hither or there, and until they decide to take that on. So this is, if we're gonna go testify at budget, this is what we can ask for. But I will tell you that John Howell Park is a hard sell at the Parks Department. I mean, Warren's done a nice job of making the case for it, but it is a hard sell. There are many parks in much worse shape than John Howell Park.
Well, we can let them know about the lights out.
We can try to get a few things done. There are a few homeless folks that are in our line of homeless folks has been, don't sleep there, and if you leave any stuff behind, even if we don't catch you sleeping there, we're gonna get rid of it during the day. You gotta take your stuff with you. It's not a house. It's not a campsite. You gotta take your stuff out. Anything we find during the day, we remove it. We don't put it in a local trash can. We remove it altogether. That's always been our line.
Oh, I'm almost out of food bags again. I didn't appreciate that.
The problem with food banks is Sean.
No
is that they're getting used. That's also the good news. All right, anything else, and I'd like the board to hang around if you can, and I'm gonna go over the board, and also we'll walk through the thing, and you all are welcome to hang around. I'm just gonna adjourn the regular meeting.
Oh, short one?
Melissa didn't make it. I mean, Angelica didn't make it, so we don't have the report. We'll have to defer that till next month. But it was a big success, I know, and there's some uncertainty about just how much money we made, but we did fine, especially given that the weather was, like it was December or something. But I mean, even so, attendance was not substantially down, especially on Saturday. It was terrific. It wasn't that bad on Sunday, so, generally good news.
And I can do a brief update on something that was on the previous agenda, but isn't on this one, about the logos. You know, Lola's staff has finished all of the assets that we need to move forward with incorporating the new logo into the website, newsletter, and other collateral we produce. I had my eye on a particular designer to make it happen, and the plate is too full right now, so I need to find another designer to help implement the changes. So as soon as I do that, I'll start making that happen.
Is there any other business? Is there a motion to adjourn? It is done. So moved and done. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
I'm sorry?
We have a friend who's a graphic